JERMELL CHARLO goes at Terrence Crawford again, attacking his resume, claiming that he has fought nobody. You know, when it comes to Charlo and Terrence Bud Crawford, you got to ask yourself, why is Charlo so intimidated and aggravated by Terrence Bud Crawford? And he goes on to say that his resume consists of old guys and, you know, people past their prime and whatever and whatnot. You know, and I'm wondering if JERMELL knows that by saying that, has he took a good look at Errol Spence's boxing record? It consists of the very thing that he's trying to criminalize Terrence Bud Crawford for. Everybody who they give Errol Spence credit for beating was supposedly under the same circumstances in which Charlo is trying to ridicule Terrence Bud Crawford, talking about they old. Chris Algier, old and burnt out. Kell Brook, old and burnt out. Sean Porter, old and burnt out. That's if you want to play that old and burnt out game. So if anything, Errol Spence would actually be the ambassador of the very thing that he's trying to talk about Crawford about, which makes no sense. And the other thing is this. He talks about the guy's resume, but at the end of the day, I think he's just a little bit sour because this guy, supposedly with this horrific resume, has been considered pound for pound #1 for the longest with that resume. And basically, I guess he's saying that his resume is better. And you have never even graced a pound for pound list, which I think is criminal. But nonetheless, the same person that you criticizing, the rest of the world seem to recognize that he is the good and he is the best fighter in the world with that resume. You know, and to add on top of that, you trying to tear down a guy that if Errol Spence beat him, you're going to want to give him all his credit for beating Terrence Bud Crawford. But if somebody wanted to detract or take away from his victory from Terrence Bud Crawford, if he is victorious, you guys will call them a hater. But what if they tell you, no, I'm just going by what y'all called him before the fight happened. You said he was nobody and he doesn't have a good resume, blase split. So if Errol Spence beats him, what credit do I have to get him? What credit do I have to give him just based off of what you said about Terrence Crawford alone? He doesn't deserve any credit because he was nothing when he fought him. You see how that doesn't make sense? And to add on top of that, JERMELL knows that Spence be whooping on him. And he knows Spence ain't no match for him. So he know if he can whoop on Spence, he can whoop on his ass. And that's what makes him feel uncomfortable. And what we're going to end it with is this, and let's just be realistic, okay? Quiet as kept, Terrence Bud Crawford resume is superior to Charlo's. He hasn't done what he's done in the sport. I don't see nobody casting Charlo's hands. None of that stuff. But let's get to the real important part. This so-called guy that you saying don't got a good resume, if you were to fight him, would be the best guy on your resume. And he's a bigger draw and more popular and has made more money than you. I'm not understanding this grounds to talk shit. I'm just not. If he fought him, he would be the best opponent on paper on his resume. So the same person that he's trying to tear down and say ain't fought nobody, if he fought him, would be the best person on his resume. So what does that say about your resume? You see how all that stuff don't make no sense? And it ain't like Charlo got a weak resume. No, he doesn't have the star-studded names, but he's fought good people. And that's the same thing that I could say about Terrence Bud Crawford. But let's just be real here. If you was to fight this guy, this on paper and off paper, this would be the best guy that you fought. And he would be the A side. You would be the B side. Because you don't have a fan base. You're not as big as him. You're not as known as him. You're not as popular as him. You know? So in all situations, he's talking about Crawford. But when you compare Charlo to Crawford, he shows Charlo as to be inferior as far as compared to Terrence Bud Crawford. So all what Charlo's talking about, it doesn't make no sense. You more upset and more aggravated about this guy than Errol Spence is, and it doesn't make no sense. But the question is, you talking a whole lot of this, you talking a whole lot of that. If he knocks on your door and asks you for a fight, are you going to give up an excuse or fight him? Because at the end of the day, he will be the best guy, and that will be your biggest fight. Okay? I don't know how much you get paid, but I guarantee you it will be the best fighter you have on your resume, and it will be the best fight that you could produce for yourself that's outside of Tony Harrison. All those is facts.